Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
And today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, best of new inventory with great warranties and great end-of-the-year deals. Terrific pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee because they go over every vehicle. And a service department that backs it up for the life of your vehicle. Great pros there, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Do we have a play-by-play call today? No? Sounds like we've got Neal. Okay. Best half hour of the week. Neal Coolong, sir, welcome, and thank you for the text on Sunday.
As always, it's great to be here, and I'm sure you enjoyed Sunday a lot better than other Sundays that you had before. That was something else. Living close to Iowa, you tend to come across the diehards and the faithful, and they can get a little obnoxious at times, and I didn't hear anything from them on Sunday. I haven't heard anything from them now either, so I enjoyed what I saw.
Yeah. So let's get to what the Steelers did on Sunday night against Las Vegas. What did you think of how everything played out together, offense, defense, and how they worked in unison to make that a win on Sunday night?
No, it was I think Tomlin said this the best. We saw improvements in all areas. You know, kind of the old Herm Edwards, we can build on this kind of perspective. It's true, but you know how big of an improvement it was. And this year, perhaps more than others, week 3 seems pretty late in the season already. Yeah. The fact that they're 2-1 obviously is really what matters, but you can't bank on much coming from this team heading into next week. You are getting a historic level of production from T.J. Watt, and with all due respect to T.J. Watt, there's no way you're going to continue that pace. That just can't happen. And they're almost relying on him as if he's the quarterback of the team, and he's the one that needs to make plays in order for the team to win. Now, that's not a sound strategy over the course of 14 more games. So they're going to need to figure out what exactly has happened along their offensive line. Their protection is a mess. It seems like they're the polar opposite of where they were, where they ended last season, I should say, because this looks a lot like they did last year. They're struggling tremendously to run zone, which is what saved them over the second half of last season. I can't quite figure out how they've regressed as badly as they have. I will say, certainly the first 2 games, they played 2 excellent defensive teams. And you have a couple players on that third team that they played and largely stifled who are big-time NFL players. So you have to give credit to the competition. There is a factor at work there that matters. Are you going to see that against the Houston Texans? I don't know. I hope for their sake that they won't. But they really need to step up and play a consistently impressive game. I don't mean that to say that they need to impress me in any way, but they have to show for themselves that they are capable of putting whatever it is that they're feeling in practices, in film room, leading into the game itself, at work on the field. And now they're doing this with, they lost a day due to travel problems. It's just kind of like, you're not catching a break here anymore. I mean, you've got some pretty detrimental injuries that you're going to have to figure out. That's another part that it should be mentioned here. as good as George Pickens is, as much as they're trying to involve Calvin Austin into this offense, Deontay Johnson got 12, 13 targets a game for 3 straight years for a reason.
Yeah.
Without him in there, you're missing some things. So they're trying to learn how to play a game that they didn't practice to play. So there is some adjustment time that's going to come with that. I wonder at what point the other shoe is going to fall, though, because again, I think we had said this before. The opposing quarterback they went against was a disaster. I mean, he really just did not play a good game in any way. Pressure was able to get to him. You put these things together, and you're able to gut out a win that was made a lot closer at the end than it probably should have. Lesser team probably next week, but they've got a long way to go if they're going to compete entering January. It's certainly not over now. 2-1 isn't all that impressive.
Yeah. So let's get to Jaylen Warren for a moment. It just seems the offense is a little different when he's in there. I also thought he did a good job on blitz pickup, which is something you have to have a running back do. Is it because Harris is more highly drafted? Is it because Harris had a really good rookie year? Why is Warren not getting more snaps?
I think they worked him in a bit more. You saw him earlier in the game. I think we can go back and forth on how we want to define him being worked in. From one perspective, I would say if he's entering the game earlier, that's more indicative of a desire to get him involved. You can't estimate how many touches each guy is going to get. That's all going to be situation specific. The fact that they're putting him out earlier in the series that they are, and he got carries and catches throughout the game, I think they are suggesting they're okay with this being a two-back type of system. But with their inability to block in zone at assistance that they can, as demonstrated by the fact that they continue to call it, there's a disconnect there that I think is resulting in some obvious frustration. They're calling stuff that they're not able to run, which suggests they should be able to run it. They were confident in their ability to be able to run it. We're not seeing that at this point. I do think Warren is a noticeably better zone runner than Najee is, and I think what we've seen to this point, Harris's success has come more in duo and gap than it is in zone. And Warren, I think, does well with the zone. You still have to mix it up a little bit. You're not able to just say, well, we're going to run this when this guy's on the field. They all have to be able to do everything. Otherwise, every team knows exactly what you're doing. So Warren is, I think, much better than you would have thought he would have been coming in. And I don't think Harris, well, we know Harris is not producing at the level that many thought that he would. I'm not overly surprised with that. I didn't think that Najee Harris was going to be LaDainian Tomlinson like a lot of people thought.
Sure.
I thought he, works up a little bit. He could be a good NFL running back. I don't think he's going to be a great one. Right now we're seeing a mediocre NFL running back, and Warren is working up to that point. So if we look at this more in total, what we're talking about here is two running backs who aren't performing particularly well in comparison to their peers, because they're not. And they have an offensive line that it really is not doing their jobs up front at all. So you're not even getting a fair evaluation of the running backs. The whole running game itself right now is on trial. And I think that's something they're really going to need to get in the lab and fix. And I feel like I've said this, each of the last, 7-8 seasons now.
Right.
They're really not able to control the line of scrimmage, and their pass protection isn't a whole lot better. So that, in my mind, that's clearly the issue. The running back, I think, as we've seen, is going to be interchangeable. It's not worth diving down the rabbit hole of value, who's worth what, until they give a reasonable opportunity for both running backs, any running back, to have some success on a carry. We're not going to know who it is, and it's not going to matter because neither of them are going to do anything. So for me, it really has to start up front. We'll probably get a better sense of who is capable of taking over if such a thing is being discussed. I highly doubt that it would, for the same point that you made. I don't think that you're going to bench the first-round guy even in his third season of, generally kind of, blah production. In comparison to his backup, he's not even dominant. So I don't think that happens now, but they've got to fix it up front more than anything else.
And then there's T.J. Watt. Under the category of you either get better, you get worse, you never stay the same. What are you seeing where he just looks better every week?
Hands. 100% hands.
Yep.
I just on a whim, because I noticed that I forget now off the top of my head if it was a sack or if it was just a pressure on Garoppolo, but he came off of the offensive right side, and he looked like he had the tackle set up pretty well. He had a space to the inside. He could have gone outside. And Watt just has a knack of having the best timing possible before the lineman is both set with his arms extended, ready to engage. Watt's got his hands in some way knocking his leverage out. And he does a brilliant job of this. And that was one thing you noticed at like the beginning of his career. He wasn't there yet. He couldn't quite do that. He could almost equate it to like a drummer. When you're playing a double bass along with, hitting the hi-hat along with the snare, it takes a lot to get four body parts in unison working together for one common goal. You can have them do whatever, they're doing, but when they're in sync with one another, you become much more versatile. That's what Watt has done. He's really using both of his hands together, and his feet are following along with what they need to. And he's so quick. I forget the tackle's name, whoever it was, couldn't even respond to the first move that Watt had, and Watt was already swimming around him. And it wasn't brute force. It wasn't sheer athleticism. It was the technique. It was what he did with his hands to not allow, to be blunt, not allow himself to be blocked. I know that sounds simple, but you can't even put him off his game. He's shaving a half second off of that. That makes it even harder for the quarterback to get rid of the ball. I think it was a sack. It was definitely a pressure, whatever it was. But Watt is adding more and more to that. It's harder to just tackles are not getting their bodies on him. They put two guys out there, and he's sifting between the two of them like they're not even there. And so much of that is just the veteran savvy that he's built up. And it's still weird to me that he's a pretty deep veteran player. He's been around for a while. It really doesn't feel like it. But you see him. He's as crafty as his oldest brother is. He's got all the moves now, and that's making him even harder to defend. The athleticism is going to go the older that you get. The craft, the technique has to take over at that point, and that's where he is. And we're looking at a potential pretty historic run here. You don't see a whole lot of guys get 6 sacks in 3 games in the situations the Steelers have been in. One blowout, 2 reasonably close games.
We're about 12 minutes in on this, and I have not even brought up Kenny Pickett yet, so I'm going to do it here. He did throw 2 touchdown passes in the game. You look back at last year's draft, you're going to ask, is he one of the top 32 players? No, he's not. In reality, he's probably a second or third round pick, but he's a quarterback, so he ends up being a first round pick. Where is he now in his development? I mean, is he seeing the field better? Is he delivering it better? Is he doing things that are showing a progression?
I think he knows he needs to get his butt out of the pocket. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. That's my concern. I don't know if you can develop a quarterback like that. We're seeing him throw on the move a lot. And Collinsworth pointed this out, and everybody thinks that it's great, these acrobatic highlight types of throws. That's not helping you become an NFL quarterback, because when you're at your best, you're getting rid of the ball. You have to make a decision and deliver it on time wherever it is that you're going. He's getting flushed out to a point where it's almost like he's being drilled on that all the time. And it's probably because, well, he is. He's taking on pressure on a per-throw basis. Rarely is he sitting in the pocket and delivering down the field. But he's not looking to run either. He's escaping to escape. He's not looking to get upfield with the ball. Not that would be, a bad thing. He's keeping his eyes down the field. My point is that the play is blown up. They're off schedule within a second of every snap when they're passing. He can't take 5 and 7 step drops. There's not enough time for him to be able to do even that. He has to escape earlier than that. So it's hard to evaluate his development. I will say this: over the first 2 games, his inaccuracy was really concerning. He missed a lot of throws that, frankly, he should have been able to hit. I don't know if they beat San Francisco once out of 10 times, but Pickett missed a lot of opportunities. He left some on the board against Cleveland. I don't know if I saw as many against Las Vegas. He didn't seem to have to do as much. There was still a bunch of pressure on him. Took a couple big hits. That's going to happen, but he delivered a competitive ball down the field far more often in this game than he did the previous 2. So that development is okay. I don't know how much of this is a part of the game plan, and with that, you're going to not get away with that for very long. Eventually, they're going to figure out where you're going when you're pressured, and they're going to load up over to that side. It's going to make it a lot harder for you to avoid sacks and avoid takeaways. And to me, it kind of seems like one of those games that's coming up just based on what we've seen. He still needs to get a lot better. There's no doubt about that. He's not quite what we thought he was going to be. But a solid game last week. We can't really complain a whole lot about it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, but a solid game, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, you referenced the Texans game. That will be coming up. They're coming off the win over Jacksonville. And C.J. Stroud played very, very well. You would normally think before any season that the Steelers are the prohibitive favorite over the Texans. But the way the 2 teams are playing right now, I think it's a way closer game than people realize. What are your thoughts?
I agree with that 1,000%. This is not Houston's not a team that's going to get worse each week. DeMeco Ryans is a phenomenal coach.
Sure
and
is.
Look at where they have Stroud already. You know, they've highlighted the thing that he does the best. He delivers the football on time, accurately. They're having him do as much of that as humanly possible. They're not asking him to do more than that. Their scheme defensively looks very much like what they did in San Francisco. While they don't probably have the horses yet to pull the cart that they want there, this isn't going to be an easy team to beat. You can tell that they're into it. You know, Ryans has them pointed in the right direction. Going into their place, I remember, I think it was like 2011 or so, the Steelers were still kind of on top, and Houston was just starting to break out to become, a contender in the AFC. It was early in the season, and the place was absolutely packed. Good contingent of Steelers fans there, but Texans fans were super into it, super excited. I think that was J.J. Watt's rookie year.
Yeah.
He returned a fumble like 80 yards and outran Ike Taylor down the sideline for the score. Just you saw what Watt was going to be at that point. I feel some of that in this game with Houston. They're not quite at that level, but this is a statement game for them as a very young team, very early on. They have confidence. They're playing well. They're coming off of a pretty solid game for what you could expect for them, and they're going to improve each week. It's a really new team. It's a really young team. This is going to be a battle. I think this is going to be a lot more competitive than Steelers fans probably want to admit. But I don't, player for player, I think Pittsburgh is better. But I think Houston's got the emotional advantage right now. We'll see. I don't see what the line is offhand. I thought I saw Pittsburgh by 3, but I'd probably take Houston to cover that right now, to be honest.
Well, we'll take you to cover anytime. My friend, thanks so much. Always appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Neal Coolong.